to it. Let's talk about the making money side. Walk us through the before you started business coaching and mentoring and those type of things and podcasting and getting all this traffic and views. Walk us through the life before that. Nightlife world, entertainment world, hosting, etc. Walk us through how can people out there make money in the entertainment space?
So what's really interesting is that because you know me from the hosting, you actually understand how I started the business. And I talk about this all the time. It was like if Dan Fleischman taught a social circle business, it would be what I teach in Men of Action, because I refer to you all the time. And the main thing I say is do things for other people and ask for nothing in return. But you think about that, and it just sounds like you're doing charity and you're being taken advantage of. But in reality, you end up creating businesses because one of the things you realize is with the scalability of social media, if I do something and I can reach, even 1 million people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do on every platform, you can get 1 million views in a month or 2 months. Yep. It's not that hard, right? For you guys, you said you're doing 200 million views a month. If you start off and you do something like that, and even 1% of those people like find your whatever it is you sell so valuable that they buy, you can become outrageously wealthy from that. I just don't think people grasp that concept. When you really think about all the people that watched Ty Lopez when he does the video of here I am in my garage, the number of people who watch that video versus the number of people who actually bought 67 Steps is less than a fraction of 1%, right. But it made him over $100 million probably. Correct. And it's just craziness when you come to this concept. So Wes Watson is another person. He says, I'm the motherfucker who just doesn't quit, right? He keeps going on and on. He keeps providing value. One of the things that actually got me really motivated to do this business was when I interviewed Wes, and he was like, I would have guys who would come and watch my free stuff for 2 or 3 years and then finally buy my program. 2 or 3 years, man. That actually made me feel great. I started having clients that had been following me for 3-4 years, and then they finally bought, and I was like, and it's the most rewarding thing. And we end up hiring them. We usually end up hiring those guys to be sales leads. We end up hiring them to do different stuff because they understand the concepts of the company. Now, what you were asking before, I get out of the military in 2011. Before that, I had worked in sports radio briefly. I was a DJ at a strip club for 4 years. So that actually
sports radio. So I knew it.
Yeah, for sure. There was a DJ at a strip club for 4 years, which actually got it to where, like, if you're a DJ at a strip club, you have to talk on the microphone for 8 hours a day. You get you get refined on the microphone. Yeah. You don't have any issues on a microphone after doing that. And then in the military, I was actually the presenter for a lot of the award ceremonies. So I would do that. And then I was also an MC at a night. Hopefully my commander isn't watching this, but I was an MC at a nightclub also while I was doing that, part-time while I was an officer. I retired as a captain. So I get out, and I remember in 2007, I went to Las Vegas for a week, and I remember going there. I was like, dude, I don't take any leave ever. I might as well just take a week of leave. I went there for the NBA All-Star game because I'm friends with Kenny Smith, who's one of the guys on Inside the NBA. And I go there, and I go to a bunch of parties, and during the week, I just remember going to a place called Tangerine and another place called Jet and another place called Pure. They're all gone now. Tao is still there. And seeing the most beautiful women I'd ever seen in my life, and it was a Tuesday. And I was like, yeah, and if you're local, you get in free. And remember, I'm in my 20s or my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm just like, this is the easiest shit I've ever seen in my life. Like the rest of the world's out there, like going out trying to meet hot girls, and like I would go out in Vegas on a Tuesday and see the most beautiful. I'm like, dude, I'm moving here. As soon as I got out of the military, I split time between Vegas and LA. And then a couple of things happened. I started working with a small event company for a while, and they helped me understand how the nightlife scene works. So there's a couple things. There's a nightlife scene, and then there's like table game, and then there's social media, and then all these things were like conflated as, say, 2011. This is when Dan Bilzerian gets on Instagram, and he starts taking off. So we kind of see, okay, this is our first example. Dan is like our first example. He's a good friend of mine. He's his first example of this is what you can do that will go viral. The concept of viral really wasn't a thing. There was kind of some Facebook and some Twitter, tag a friend. It wasn't the same thing. And then we watched Dan, and his like level of, I just don't give a fuck, and no matter what I do, I'm just going to get more views and more reaction. That was kind of the first time we saw that. And so that blew up. And then, so I'm living in Las Vegas during this time period, and I remember the first thing I did was I hosted a bikini fashion show at Lily Bar in the Bellagio. I was working with this group, and I got on the microphone, and I just made everybody laugh. I think that they thought it was just kind of a throwaway thing where I was going to say people's names, but I just made everybody laugh. So they hired me to come back again. Then we started recruiting girls for these bikini fashion shows. Then Rehab, which was the oldest pool in the city at that point, Rehab Pool asked us to host their bikini competition and then do the recruiting. Well, I mean, now we got $50,000 behind us to do recruiting. So now I'm getting 200-300 girls to show up. From there, one of the guys from Maxim Remember the Maxim party used to be thrown by Karma? Remember Karma International used to do the Playboy Mansion, and then they did the Maxim party. So I was a videographer at the Playboy Mansion, and then one time I was a videographer. I was supposed to be for the Maxim party in Bel Air, I would say 2015, and the girl who was supposed to do it was Caitlin O'Connor. I think that's who it was, and she couldn't show up, so I ended up being the host, and that's where I met Steve Fowler from Babes in Toyland, and that's where I met Joel Alvarez from Black Tape Project on that red carpet, and I met Emily Sears on that red carpet too, and then from there everything just kind of flourished. So then I was hosting Babes in Toyland, I was hosting and then I talked to you, and then it was once I hosted Babes in Toyland, Marcela Navarrete, she asked me to come host your event, and then that's when I did it, and then try to give you like the best video I possibly could. And from there, I wanted to just basically have a monopoly to host every single red carpet charity event there was. And I just started learning these things from meeting people and sitting down with them, became good friends with Ty Lopez and a bunch of these people. And then from doing so, I was like, okay, there's something we're doing here that's working really well, but I don't know how to codify it. And I started reading a bunch, and I got into psychology, the concepts of evolutionary psychology, the concepts of mate choice copying, which is when men are surrounded by women, more women find them attractive. And I was like, man, there's something here. And I was really interested in it. I was giving speeches on it, but I wasn't doing it professionally. I was still working in finance. I was a quantitative analyst. And then in 2020, when the COVID happened, the crash happened. And so these two parts of my life, whereas this financial part of my life, where we were decimated. This fund I was working for, we just got destroyed. And I was sitting here sort of teaching this part-time, and I was like, what if I start teaching this full-time? And so the concept of starting Men of Action came in, I want to say December of 2019, and then we turned it into a real business, say October of 2020, and then we started doing, I think the first month we did 40 grand. This last month we did 520,000 a month. That's about what we're doing right now. But it's all come from the concepts of the things that I've learned over the last 10 years or the last 20 years from being in the U.S. military and then working in nightlife and all this high status networking. Whereas like for instance, whenever I come to your events, I always want to have 40 or 50 girls with me. And it's not to show off. It's just because it's more fun. It's more fun for me, and then more people want to figure out who I am. They give me their card. They want to network with me. They want to come on my podcast. And I've taken all these techniques and steps, and I've tried to put them into one program. So that's pretty much what's going on.
So how do people make money in the nightlife space?
In the nightlife space, there's a lot of different ways. So obviously one of the best people to follow, I would read the 3 case studies at Harvard on Jason Strauss. Jason Strauss is the creator of Marquee in New York. There's also a book that briefly discusses him. It's called Very, Very Important People by Ashley Mears. She's a professor of sociology from Boston University. Basically the concept of, if you want to own a nightclub, that's one way to make money. If you want to be a club promoter, I'll tell you this: being a club promoter is kind of a weird situation because you don't make a lot of money. It's kind of a beating. It's a hard job in the beginning, but it's a really great way. If you have a fear of talking to women or talking to other people, you get really good with social anxiety very quickly when your job depends on you getting human beings to come into a club. So I actually recommend, if you're considering it, I think either people should do that. That's a really great way to do it. Another way to do it is kind of like what Steve Fowler and Barry Bly do, which is throw these events. They'll basically go to a venue. They'll tell the venue will say, we'll give you the event. It's usually on an off night, like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And they'll say, hey, we'll give you the venue for $5,000. We'll take for the first $5,000 from the bar, and everything else is left is yours. Does that make sense? So then you bring in your own tables and you keep 100% of the revenue from the bottles after the first 5,000. That has been another way to do it. Another way I've seen is you throw a parties at different places in like Las Vegas or Los Angeles, and then you ask for a flat fee of $5,000 or $10,000, and then the bar keeps everything else. Those are the best ways I've seen in order to do it. But I actually look at nightlife, to be honest with you, as a loss leader. I look at nightlife as a way to get great content to do a business. Does that make sense? So nightlife, and I'm including day pools, and I'm including bikini competitions, and I'm actually including like Model Citizen Fund. I'm including all that, Babes in Toyland. That kind of content, generally, it's hard to make money from that specifically, but the content you make from it, you can use to promote a business. My business has to do with high status networking. So all that content that I have is fantastic combined with the podcast. So the content at the events is like, here is the proof that all these really attractive women engage with this content. And then the podcast is, here's the proof that these really high status, high net worth individuals want to engage with the content. And so that's, for me, that's how I've been able to use the content I get from nightlife in order to make money.